another day. Jim and Bill light the way. It's another day. We'll make it through. Jim and Bill are here for you.
Well, hello there. It's another day. I'm Jim Harrington.
And I am Bill Knight. Well, I guess there's a lot of interesting news out there. Where do we go to first? The tsunami?
Yeah, I think so because it's amazing.
8.8 is what it was.
Yeah, I should play the cut from Hannity because you hear how they announced it last night, and then they kind of explain what's going on. I think he said 8.7, but everyone else this morning that I'm reading says 8.8. But I guess what's 1/10 when you're up that high? It's
well, it's probably a lot, but either way, I think today they settled it was 8.8. But either way, Hawaii's in the path. The entire West Coast is in the path. It's kind of interesting. So if they want to explain it, that's great because somebody's getting clobbered, if not all of them.
Well, it said it struck near Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula.
Yeah,
and
that's a big fault line there. They've had a quake there before, and it was pretty devastating. But 8.8, that's major. Now, there is another one that goes right down the middle of the Pacific. I think that's the Caspian or whatever it's called. So it starts with a C. There's another one closer to the shore, and the one that's closer to the American coast, that might be the Capsapian or what? I don't know how it's pronounced, but either way, that one is said to be going, and there's a lot of shifting going on with the plates right now. Is this normal or is it not? I guess we can talk about that.
I got
too.
a bunch of stuff. Let's play the cut from Hannity, where it kind of explains what's going on.
All right, this is a Fox News alert. A massive 8.7 magnitude earthquake off the coast of Russia has now issued tsunami advisories and watches, including Japan, Hawaii, the entire west coast of the U.S. This could be one of the top 10 earthquakes ever recorded. Joining us now from Fox Weather is Steve Bender is with us. Steve, 8.7, that puts it in the top 10. That means these tsunami warnings and advisories are very real.
Sean, this is massive. And you had just mentioned Japan's impacted by this. The U.S. Embassy in Tokyo has already been told evacuate and get to higher ground. And this was just off the coast of Russia, as you had mentioned, only 8 miles from the coast of Kamchatka, Russia. And so we've already seen on social media the waves that are pushing in towards Russia. For Japan, they're expecting 9-foot waves to impact the islands. As we look at the Aleutian Islands there, south of Alaska and the peninsula, tsunami warnings for the western edge of that because of the proximity to the earthquake. We get down into Hawaii. They are also in a tsunami warning. This has been a confirmed wave that is moving in, likely to make impact just after 7:15 local time. The Oahu Emergency Management said, this is what you got to do. You got to get to at least a 10-story building and get to 4 floors or above that. So people are seeking higher ground right now. You look at the west coast of the lower 48. Everyone is under a tsunami watch right now for the Pacific Northwest. Washington and Oregon, arrival time 11:40 p.m. local time for that initial wave, down towards Northern California, San Francisco, and those areas around the Bay. About 12:30, midnight, that's when you're looking at that potential wave, and then Southern California right after 1 a.m. So when we're looking at this, it is expecting flooding along those coastal areas. You got to gain elevation for spots like California. It is a steep slope, but other areas are vulnerable. Also, I do want to mention, Sean, we have Guam, of course, a massive military base. They are also in this as well with a warning. So major concern, aftershocks just coming in at 6.8 and 6.3. So the magnitudes, even on the aftershocks, are massive. As you had said right off the top, this could be a top 10 strength ever. This is preliminary right now at 8.7. But either way, if you're under an advisory, a watch, or a warning, it is important that you are getting to higher ground because you're not going to see it. This is coming in overnight, and that wave energy is going to slam the coast. So right now, Sean, we're efforting to get some guests. I talked with the state seismologist out of Alaska just earlier this month when they had large earthquakes. He said this is the most active region in the entire world, and now we're seeing this major earthquake unfold. 2 a.m. local time off the coast of Russia, and the ripple effects continue on in the hours ahead.
All right, Steve, let me be very clear. If you're watching the show tonight and you're in Alaska, if you're in California, if you're in Guam, maybe you're watching from Japan, I would tell everybody they better be listening and they better be paying attention. You have mere hours to get to significantly higher ground. Fair statement?
Fair statement, especially when you're mentioning Japan. I mean, when we talk about the strength of this one, the last time we had seen anything at an 8.7 or greater was back in Japan in 2011. So we haven't seen anything like this in over a decade. And as you had mentioned, this is coming in overnight. You're not going to see that wave energy, that water coming in, get to higher ground and lead to the warnings. Listen to them and start moving now.
Okay, so I was listening this morning, Bill, and I didn't hear about any major tsunami problem on the West Coast or in Hawaii. So maybe they dodged a bullet?
No, I don't think so. I think that wave could still be coming because you got to think, how long, how fast does it travel and how long across, so I don't know. I mean, what do they call that? The Kamchatka? Kamchatka?
Yeah.
Yeah. The last
Peninsula.
time that quake went off, and that's the same place, was in 1952, and it claimed 15,000 casualties.
Wow.
So it's big. And
did you hear about the size of the aftershocks? They were 6.8 and 6.3.
Yeah, those are major.
Yeah, those by themselves, that's a major earthquake.
I mean, and that quake was number 5 on the list. Number 6 on the list was an 8.8. So, yeah, they're right. It's the top 10. And that was in 2010, offshore Bio, Chile, 521 casualties. So this, and I think they look at the casualties too, not just, the magnitude of it, but what's in its path. And what's in its path, the last time, again, it claimed a lot of people when it claimed, what was it, 15,000, I said? So it was 15,000?
Yeah.
Now see, the thing that I have a problem with, get to a high-rise building.
A 10-story building. They said 10 stories.
Get to the fourth floor at least. Well, I'm sitting there going, sometimes buildings crumble from the smack of a wave.
For Hawaii, they were saying get to a minimum of 10 stories. How many, how many people, first of all, can you get into a building that has 10 stories?
Okay.
Go ahead.
If the ground can rock and take down a building, Can it take a tidal wave?
I mean,
But where are they going to run? They got nowhere to run. Climb up a volcano.
They showed video this morning of people were driving to, I guess, the mountainous region, the higher elevations in Hawaii, and they had no place to go, so they were pulling into service areas, and the service areas were packed. They had all these different cars, and the one guy said I couldn't find a service area where I could park. So I had to keep driving until I found one. It took me a while. This is in Hawaii. There's a lot of people who are very nervous.
Yeah, but, you're going to be stuck up there for a while because it's going to be a while before you can come down, the roads to be cleared. There's going to be all kinds of washout in there. And there's going to be people that don't make it out. So there's kind of a hazmat.
It was interesting.
Too.
They said they even included Guam. Guam in the alert.
But they're talking about Alaska all the way down to San Diego.
Yeah.
If that thing, and Hawaii's not big enough, or Japan's not big enough to stop it from where it was, and the aftershock. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not there. I can't sit there and predict. I don't study earthquakes, but I do know, having lived in them, they're pretty unpredictable.
Well, I wonder, and this is
and the aftermath is never good.
A guy named Eric Hecker was a guy who worked in the Antarctic. We've played this before, but it's worth playing it again. He testified. What you're hearing is a testimony in front of Congress under oath. And I thought it was interesting to play it again because he talks about how he claims that we can now generate earthquakes. He used it as an example, Christchurch, New Zealand. Apparently, that was an accident. I mean, they were testing a unit, and I guess it fired, and it caused that earthquake. I'll let him speak for himself. His name is Eric Hecker.
I will start, since we have to be brief. I have already given all pertinent information and supporting documentation to the Senate Intelligence Committee and AARO. They informed me that all of my information will be recorded for public record and shared with Congress. It is that important. In 2010, I was selected to go down to the South Pole Station in Antarctica for an entire year by Raytheon Polar Services as an employee of a third-party contractor for the National Science Foundation. I function in a dual-role capacity as a tradesman and a firefighter. My responsibilities required me to be more informed than most of my crew and offered me complete access to the facilities. What I learned from this unique experience needs to be shared with the entire world. The technology at the South Pole Station certainly can do what it is presented as its primary purposes, and unfortunately, much more. The IceCube neutrino detector is presented as a passive listening device for the purposes of the science as presented. But I'm going to skip right through the chase, folks. I have provided documentation that proves that the 5,160, what they call DOMs, that are embedded in the ice can actually transmit at 2,047 volts each. That gives us a long list of things to consider. It is effectively a multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that I will list rapidly a few things that it can do. Vehicle detection. We're learning that these off-world craft, on-world craft, ours or other nations, are also emitting neutrinos. So this makes the South Pole Station effectively an air traffic control station for this new level of equipment that nobody's discussing. In addition to the ability to detect neutrinos and the exotic vehicles, I provided documentation that shows that this is also a system for faster than light communications. In the past, Gary McKinnon has hacked NASA, found the off-world fleet, the list of captains, and it's apparent that if we have faster than light vehicles moving throughout the system, we're going to need faster than light communications. This is that facility. Unfortunately, I have other bad news. The season that I was there, 2010 to 2011, we converted from construction to operations and maintenance in both the elevated station and the detector array. Unfortunately, when they first fired it up, that was when we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. There was 2 incidental shots before they were able to target it correctly. This is an earthquake generating device as well. This is the weapons of war that we have to deal with now and what Raytheon's hiding. There's an ELF system at the South Pole Station that when I arrived, I was told it was off, dismantled, and completely defunct. In my work, I will rapidly just tell you, I had to figure out the circuitry for certain other repairs, and I found that this system is in fact completely energized, up and running, and being utilized with the other systems for nefarious purposes as well. The Atmospheric Research Observatory is in what we call the clean air sector. I witnessed myself a very powerful green laser shooting out of the top of this facility into the cosmos. This, I believe, is a secondary form of long-range communications and or a defense system. I am not saying that we need to be scared of anything that's out there, but please understand the military-industrial complex is happy to invest all of your money in alleviating their fears. A question of power comes into play for all of these facilities that are present. I assure you, I knew what was going on. I knew the load demands of the facility, and all of these new items exceed the demand for the systems that I was presented. I am doing due diligence and research. I believe there is either a secondary power supply there that is either nuclear, that was there prior to the start of the Antarctic Treaty, which prohibits such things, and or that there is some sort of exotic power supply system there that just is not in the verbiage of the treaty, so it negates the responsibility to the parties involved. I think that pretty much covers it for time. If anybody wants to find out more, I have a website where all this information is at. For brevity, I'll wrap it up, but you can go to deciphering.tv. I've documented all of this stuff, and information is available.
Eric Hecker testifying in front of Congress. He sounded nervous. You could hear it. You could hear it in his voice. What I found interesting was they have a device that I guess they were fine tuning, and it accidentally discharged and caused an earthquake in New Zealand. And so that was in 2010. That was 15 years ago. If they were just getting it together 15 years ago, what the hell can it do now? And, Bill, is it being used as a device that, to strong-arm, let's say, Russia to the bargaining table? Hey, get to the bargaining table or you're going to have problems that aren't nuclear that might be worse. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know. I do not know.
Well, that thing, it seems the way that they're on the short end of the stick, the way it flows their way. It would seem that the aftermath, blows our way when you talk about, and I consider Japan that too.
Yeah, you mean the tsunami. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
I mean, what we really have to worry about, see now, that one there is on the Russian side. On the American side, it's called the Cascadia. I just looked it up, and it runs. Now, the San Andreas Fault runs right through the middle of California, more or less.
Yep.
This runs right along the coastline, and they have been predicting for years, and it's getting close. It's showing signs of doing something. When that thing goes, it's going to be at least a magnitude 9, if not a 10. The biggest ever.
Don't you wonder, Bill? I mean, when you think about, we talk about Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia, and you talked about Cascadia, and then you talk about the San Andreas Fault. If you look at it, it's like a bow on a bow and arrow, like a bow, and you got to wonder, is it really like all connected in the first place? Yeah.
It is. And the Cascadia, they've been predicting it is going to go. And just so you know, when that goes and does its thing, the ground will drop 6 feet. So you imagine that with water coming in, everything shaking, everything right along the coastline there. We've got naval bases there. In San Diego, you've got major cities on the coastline.
And Bill, if we have a place in Antarctica, the Russians do too. They probably have a system similar to the one that we have. Just the way it is. They steal ours, we steal theirs. And maybe you're right. Maybe this is their way of saying, hey, this is what we can do to your West Coast without even sending a bomb. If you don't, Well,
the Cascadia will sit there. We would get the blowback right away because it's right there. But it would send a massive tsunami going from our coast that way. I mean, we're going to fight each other, like a pool party, having a big splash on each side. I mean, this is crazy. But, you get the weather, too, that's going on. Do we have people playing God? They don't care about the civilians or the cost of anything, because, we'll replace it. We'll replace the people. We'll replace the buildings.
You're absolutely correct. You'd like to think that they care for humanity, these people.
No, they do not.
They don't. Yeah.
I sent you that thing yesterday. We don't need to get into that today. That's a whole different discussion. But there are courses taught. You have to be one of the elites, the wealthy, to get into this. But they teach you who should not be in power. That would be you, Jim. That would be me, Bill. And that would be you, the listener.
Oh, and Donald Trump, too. And Donald Trump should be in power.
And he's involved in that thing. He is an outlier. And there was a move that was put in place to sit there and demonize him. He's danced all along. They're attacking again. You've got one of the heads by the snake, or the heads of the snake by the neck, to where it's fighting and it's unleashing everything.
Yeah.
And so there's, they say Trump can't let go of the Epstein files. No, that's not he can't let go of the narrative. No, it is the Democrats and certain people. And when I say Democrats, not as the voting populace, but there's rhinos too, that are sitting there part of this elite crew, and they're going, they got us by the short hairs. And so they are doing everything they can to sit there, and Epstein might be the only thing that they can sit there. They've already been caught with the Russia hoax, but if they can take one thing and make it seem real, then they can take all their old lies again and wrap it all back in and sell that lie because people have been conditioned, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it does. Hey, let's take a moment to to like and share our show. Tell your friends about us. Also, if you want to contact us, it's mail@jimandbill.com.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. So, prayers going out to people, first of all, in that peninsula, the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia. I saw a video, and it's a small community of people, but there are people there, and so they don't talk about them. But the place was flooded, from what I can see this morning. So Godspeed with those people, and also, maybe by the time you hear this program, there will be some results from the tsunami, and so let's just hope that it's minimal. Let's hope it dissipates and isn't the tsunami that it could be. But 8.8, how high does it go, Bill? I think it goes to 10, doesn't it? The Richter scale?
No, I've seen one. I think there's a couple that were 10.3 or 10.5.
Oh, really?
But
Okay.
that's a couple. Most of them have been, the biggies have been in the 9s and in the high 8s, which this one is. But, along with a major earthquake comes aftershocks. And those aftershocks, which you said,
Right.
were around 6.8, but they can go on for a while, but they can also trigger other plates to go off. Well, the one we talked about, the one that we should be concerned about,
Right.
is the Cascadia. The one that's a sleeping giant in the United States is the New Madrid?
New Madrid Fault, yeah.
Yeah, that is the one, if you don't know your history, when that did its thing the first time, the Mississippi flowed
Backwards. Yep.
Think about that for a minute.
I know. Yeah. Wow. I was thinking as I was listening to the guy's testimony, Hecker's testimony, of the arrogance of man, of the arrogance to think we can control this. And I couldn't help but think, are we screwing ourselves up big time by playing God with the earth? I mean, when you start to be able to do things like create earthquakes, I mean, you're messing with stuff you really shouldn't be messing with. You don't know what the final outcome is going to be. How do you test, for example, a weapon that can cause an earthquake halfway around the world and be sure of the outcome? Oh, we're going to do this because our models say that nothing can go wrong. Well, you don't know what's in the center of our earth, really. No one's been there. You don't know what's going to happen by throwing this equipment around and generating these energy pulses. I just think it's arrogant. Yeah, I just think it's really arrogant of these people to do this. And by the way, they don't do it with our permission. They don't think they need it, folks. They don't need your permission or my permission. We live on this planet too, But somewhere along the line, somebody figured, hey, to hell with them. Keep them in the dark. Treat them like mushrooms. What do you mean like mushrooms? Keep them in the dark and cover them with BS. All right? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say the word, but if you know how mushrooms are grown, that's how it's grown. Darkness and manure. And that's what these people do to us. So, But boy, Bill, if this earthquake was man-made in Russia, in Kamchatka, well, first of all, how would we know? I guess
we wouldn't know. The guy mentioned it's an ELF generator. An ELF is an extremely low frequency. And I only know that because I used to, when I was a kid, playing around making little transmitters because I wanted to get into radio.
Yeah.
I said, well, the one thing legally I can do is do 1 watt and wrap it around the world with a low frequency. They call it a loafer, and submarines, how they communicate.
Right.
Because they can't get AM or FM down below the surface. But they build these big coils that are, you got a 2-story house, put 2 of them, back to back together, and then just fill it with one big giant coil going all the way through. Well, that's an extremely low frequency transmitting coil that they use to where they can sit there and broadcast below the surface in the ground.
The old submarines used to have to unravel a wire that would float to the surface.
No, they perfected that. Now I don't know if they shoved something into the ground, but they used to. I guess you could because one of the way they used to communicate in war time when they didn't have the radios that could go so far is you had a little amplifier. And basically all you did is you put the wires in the ground like you would take the wires out of your stereo, run it into the ground, and somebody could sit there a mile away, plug into the ground, and get your communication. Everyone else could too, but you're using the earth as the conduit. So I don't know.
Keep your eyes out for the West Coast. Gosh, I hope it's not what they say it could be, because if it's what they say it could be, the tsunami could be devastating for a lot of people. I mean, tsunamis of any size are bad, but there are smaller ones, and then there are larger ones, and you just got to hope that if they have one, it doesn't do the devastation that they could do. I mean, and boy, to go as far as Guam, holy smokes!
Well, what would happen because the plates go all over? If they can manipulate that, what would happen if 2 or 3 major plates all went off within hours or days of each other in a sequence?
Oh,
what kind of havoc could that,
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? I mean, well, I guess you don't really feel it when you're in the ocean. If you're on a ship, you might feel a swell, as you're out there. It may not be like a large wave. It may just be a kind of a massive swell that your ship rides over. I've heard that, so maybe you couldn't tell if you were in a boat. The problem with the tsunami is that swell keeps getting larger and larger, and even though if you're on a boat,
giant wave.
It's a giant wave. So when it hits shore, that's the problem. 20, 30 feet tall. Holy smokes!
Well, if you're a boat at sea, forget about it. You're not, you can't outrun it.
But you don't feel it.
Go up it sideways. You're going to have to try to go into it dead on, and you're too small. It'll be like a surfer trying to crash into a wave. It ain't going to happen. You're not going to ride the big one. It's going to ride you.
Well, actually, I heard it explained that with the tsunami, unlike a wave, that it is more of a swell as opposed to a wave. So
it's a wall.
I haven't heard that described. I've heard it described as the whole ocean rises up as one, maybe 10. So you ride with it, and you don't even feel it on a boat. You just feel that you've gone up.
No, Jim, I've never been through one, so I wouldn't know.
Well, I watch a lot of the Discovery Channel, so I mean, those things very educational. They have all sorts of shows. Of course,
that's why you're the intelligent one. You watch the Discovery Channel.
Well,
I don't.
This week was Shark Week was last week. Yeah, that was fun to watch. Spend the whole week watching sharks. What?
Well, I felt like the shark because I watch commercials, and when I see a pretty girl in tight jeans, I pay attention. Especially if it's got an old classic Mustang there, like the American Eagle commercial, which, by the way, has been,
Jenny's got what's it?
Eugenics.
Yeah, is this the one where they say it's very much like a Nazi propaganda piece?
Yeah. Well, she's got the hood up on the car.
Sydney
and
Sweeney.
She's bent over.
What's her name? Sydney Sweeney or?
Yeah. She's bent over the hood of the car, looking in at the engine, shuts it, and she walks away in her little tight jeans and gets in that car, fires it up, and drives away. American Eagle, and that's I thought, hey, cool ad, didn't matter. Could have been any race girl, but no, she was white. So it's eugenics propaganda, Nazi propaganda. And I'm going like,
her name is Sydney Sweeney, who I never heard of, by the way, ever. Now that doesn't mean much. I can't be used as I can't be used as the gauge. But I never heard of this young lady. She's a very attractive young woman. She's about 20, 22 years old, and they're making a big deal.
They labeled her.
They're making it a big deal because she has a nice figure, and she's wearing American Eagle clothing, jacket and jeans.
And she's white.
Yeah, and they all of a sudden the left is calling it a Nazi propaganda piece. What? I mean,
how would they have done that? Let's say that it was a very pretty black girl or a very pretty Indian girl.
You wouldn't be talking about it.
Why not?
It would be no big deal.
Well, no, but then, okay, there are some women that are on the plus side, but they can still be attractive in jeans.
Sure.
No matter what you do, if they want to pick on you, they're going to pick on you. And they're targeting them for some reason, and it's a distraction. But,
Well, all I can tell you is the stock for American Eagle yesterday was up big time. Just leave it. And that's true. It was up big time. So
the ad worked.
Yeah, and if all these people are saying negative things, it's really helped that advertisement. Now people are going to the internet trying to find a video of that ad just to see what's the story about. I never heard of it. There are people who never would have seen this ad if it wasn't for the controversy. So, you got to love it.
Gave me a great marketing idea. Maybe we could do an ad like that for us.
I don't think it would work. Me in jeans?
No. We'll get pretty young girls in jeans, leaning over a table listening to, their
program.
Smart device. And then we can sit there and say the same thing. We could put out the propaganda.
I like your attitude, Bill. I don't think it would work with us. Oh, my God. Hey, other news. You see where this is crazy. I don't understand where this guy's head's at. The Prime Minister of England, Keir Starmer, he just visited with Trump, and you would have thought they were kind of on the same page. Then he goes back, and yesterday he gets on television, and he says this.
On the 7th of October 2023, Hamas perpetrated the worst massacre in Israel's history. Every day since then, the horror has continued. The hostages are still being held today. The Palestinian people have endured terrible suffering. Now, in Gaza, because of a catastrophic failure of aid, we see starving babies, children too weak to stand, images that will stay with us for a lifetime. The suffering must end. Yesterday I discussed this with President Trump, and we're mounting a major effort to get humanitarian supplies back in by air, and UK aid has been airdropped into Gaza today, and crucially by land. We need to see at least 500 trucks entering Gaza every day. But ultimately, the only way to bring this humanitarian crisis to an end is through a long-term settlement. So we are supporting the US, Egyptian and Qatari efforts to secure a vital ceasefire. That ceasefire must be sustainable, and it must lead to a wider peace plan, which we're developing with our international partners. This plan will deliver security and proper governance in Gaza and pave the way for negotiations on a two-state solution. Our goal remains a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable and sovereign Palestinian state. But right now, that goal is under pressure like never before. I've always said that we will recognize a Palestinian state as a contribution to a proper peace process at the moment of maximum impact for the two-state solution. With that solution now under threat, this is the moment to act. So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to a long-term sustainable peace, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution. And this includes allowing the UN to restart the supply of aid and making clear that there will be no annexations in the West Bank.
Okay, so here's what I don't understand. Up until about 2 minutes into that 3-minute piece, he seems to be rational and on the same page as the U.S., but then he starts to veer off. It's a slow veer at first, but at the very end, the one that he's putting an ultimatum down to is the Israelis, who are supposed to be his allies. He gives them an ultimatum. And I'm thinking, wait a second, who started this whole thing? It was Hamas. They were the people on October 7th who went in and slaughtered women and children and raped them in front of their families and did despicable acts and then took a whole bunch of them prisoner. They still have 50 prisoners. So my question is, why is Great Britain all of a sudden capitulating to Hamas? I don't think they're winning. They may not be surrendering, but I don't think they're winning. And I think, to be honest with you, Israel has been very cautious about how they fight this war because they're aware that the world is watching. So I don't think that they have, put the pedal to the metal, so to speak. I think if they did that, the war would be over soon, but a lot of innocent people would die. I mean, it's a no-win situation for Israel. And I think that Great Britain, I think he's doing it, by the way, because of the large amount of illegal migrants into Great Britain from the Middle Eastern region, and I think he's trying to pacify these people.
Yeah, there's a narrative out there that's a misnarrative. Young people, and they say Trump is losing support of the young people. Well, if he is, it's because they've been misinformed. If you listen to them, they say that the aggressors, and they've always been the bad guy, is Israel.
Yeah.
And that's what they believe. And because I was talking to a 22-year-old the other day, and they're going, well, Israel has always been the aggressor, and this and this and this and that. And, they actually killed American soldiers. And I'm going like,
what?
I'm sitting there going, but their history that they've been given, and I can only assume that they learned it in higher education at school, is wrong.
I agree.
And you can't convince them otherwise. And I'm sitting there going, no. If you go back and hear your history, but there's a thing that happens in history. When people change it, they go back and change it on the internet. They change it. They try to rewrite history books, the whole 9 yards. You sit there. We have got, and there are some people our age and maybe a little bit younger that might be in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that sit there and go, well, because they didn't really pay attention or that much attention, or they've forgotten. So when they're reminded by people that they think are, on their side, and they're not on your side, and they tell you misinformation, you take it as wholesale truth, and then you rely on what you don't remember to back it up, if that makes sense. But
I'm sure, I think I know what you were saying, but
you think you know something and you don't, and then somebody comes in and fills in those blanks with a bunch of crap.
Yeah. Well, that's higher education today. That's what they say, by the way, that 94% of the professors in college are leftists. 94%. The other 6%, they probably work in the cafeteria.
Well, here's a fact that you should know. We have given aid to we wanted to send it to over there to the people in Gaza. That's what I was trying to get out of my
Yeah.
Well, but it is Hamas. They've stolen that.
Yes.
That aid. The rebels, the fighters have stolen that. So everyone talks about Gaza, that Israel attacks Gaza and all that. They're going after Hamas.
By the way, a couple of days ago, I think it was the Daily Mail, an English paper, followed up by the New York Times, ran a picture of this little child in the Gaza Strip who was emaciated, and they said the picture of the new the new Gaza, and they were implying starvation. They were talking about how Israel
It's always been there,
but Israel is starving the people who are being held. First of all, if anyone's the fault, it's Hamas. It could end today if Hamas said, "Okay, it's over. let's get some food in here. Let's take care of our people. That's our primary goal. But their primary goal, by the way, isn't their people.
Right.
But here's the thing. That picture of that baby that they just ran with it. Like the New York Times ran it like, oh, my God, look at this is what's happening in Gaza. The next day. The next day they had to run a disclaimer saying that physicians or a hospital that is aware of that child specifically said that child has a condition which makes it look emaciated, and that right next to that child in the same picture that was cropped was a brother or sister in good health. No food problems. What they were saying was that we were wrong. The kid's got other issues that caused him to look that way. We should have done some checking. But by the way, they don't say it with a full throat apology. It's sort of like a half. They
got caught.
Baked. Yeah. It's like, okay, we were wrong. We got caught. And
they tried to take that picture and distort it and make it heartstrings to pull you to the other side.
Yeah.
And forget about that. You lied and that's it. And there are kids that are emaciated because the aid is being stolen.
Yeah.
Is that our fault for giving aid and it's stolen?
But I guess what the New York Times had to admit is it's not what it appears to be. Yeah, there are kids who are hungry in every war zone. Because
there are kids that are hungry in the United States.
But the food supply system is interrupted. How they normally get their milk and their breads and stuff like that, it's stopped because they're throwing shells around. And people are interfering with it with a war. It is amazing though how the left jumps at showing a picture like that. And by the way, how many pictures did they show of mutilated people in that attack on October 7th? How many people were shown? How many babies, by the way, who were left motherless because of that vile attack? And they didn't show that in the New York Times. I mean, there's an agenda, folks, to everything. When you look at the news, be very skeptical. Don't take it at face value. Think of it as an introduction to the story, but do some digging on your own. Don't just say, well, I know what happened there. I heard it I read it in the New York Times or I watched it on NBC. Do some reading, for yourself, because there's usually a lot more to the story. A lot more to the story. Anyway, that's it. But it's amazing, Bill. A little child. God bless the child. I hope the child gets the needed nutrition. And I do think, by the way, don't get me wrong, I think that if it stimulates more supplies being sent to the innocent victims of that war, great. Get them as much as you can, because the bloody army, Hamas, is stealing it. Maybe if you flood the zone with food, some of it will get to the real people eventually. But can you imagine? By the way, you're the army. You're telling the world that you're protecting the people of Gaza, but yet you're taking their food and allowing them to starve. If anybody is causing starvation in Gaza, it's Hamas. If they're blocking the food that's being sent to the people, if they're taking that food for themselves, who's the real villain? Anyway, so much to talk about today and so little time. Did you hear about, Bill, I don't understand this. Maybe we should pause and remind people before we go any further to like and share our show, please. Like and share the show. Also, if you want to contact us, mail at jimandbill.com. We'll be right back.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com. There was a couple of days ago, over the weekend, I guess. They were out and they were by themselves, and they walked through a minority area, and all of a sudden they were attacked. They were the only white couple in the area. They were attacked, brutally attacked. I mean, one guy, I saw a video And by the way, the people who are watching, instead of going out there and stopping it and helping it, they're on their cell phones taking video. It's like they work for a news service. I mean, put your phone down and try to help the people. Stop it. Don't allow this to happen. The white guy in the couple, you see him, he's surprised by what happens. He's trying to get away. Some guy comes up from behind him, and he blindsides him and cold cocks him. I mean, he nails him. It was like Sonny Liston getting nailed by Muhammad Ali. Bang! I mean, it was brutal. The guy went down. He was out. He was unconscious. Anyway, I want you to hear this. This is the police chief of Cincinnati talking about that event. And listen to who she blames.
Another topic I want to cover real quick. Social media and journalism and the role it plays in this incident. And yes, guys, that's you. That is you. Social media, the post that we've seen, does not depict the entire incident. That is one version of what occurred. At times, social media and mainstream media and their commentaries are a misrepresentation of the circumstances surrounding any given event. What that does, that causes us some difficulties in thoroughly investigating the activity and enforcing the law. Because what happens, that social media post and your coverage of it distorts the content of what actually happened. And it makes our job more difficult. Go ahead, right here.
Thank you. 2 questions. Where were the nearest officers?
In the central business section. They were working. They were both in vehicles, and like I said, they had to maneuver through the traffic.
My second question is, you had said social media, news media distorted the content of what actually happened. What exactly was distorted? I understand that there was multiple views of the video, but exactly what led up to this? I mean, what was distorted?
Yeah, so I think by the irresponsibility with social media is it just shows one side of the equation.
She has no idea.
Without context, without factual context. And then people run with that.
Okay.
And then it grows
wait. Ma'am, stop it. Stop it. All right? You are ridiculous.
He was out on bail.
There is no justification for what happened. Yeah, I mean...
No. She's saying is they're a white couple walking through an area that's... It's their fault because they were walking through an area that's predominantly black. Well, wait a minute.
It's Cincinnati. It's Cincinnati. You can walk anywhere.
You can walk anywhere, and, you can be black and walk through a white area. If that happens to black couple, no, if that happens, but if it happens to a black couple, those white people, if that's what happens,
they go to jail.
Should be arrested. They go to jail and they get prosecuted to the fullest. We're all equal on this planet. And then the city of Cincinnati, she is a dumbtard.
Well, no, she's a. I heard a. I won't say her name, but I was watching Fox News, and she's a former FBI agent. She was talking as a Fox News contributor. No, but she said. She said that people like this police chief are diversity, equity, and inclusion hires, and they were hired for political purposes, not for the fact that they have experience. Her name is Teresa Theetge. Here's how you spell her last name: Theetge. How would you pronounce that? Theetge? Theetge?
I have no idea. Unless somebody gives it to me, I would butcher it myself.
Teresa Theetge. Yes.
Or it could be maybe the T is silent. It could be Thig.
It could be. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
Teresa.
Yeah. She's the chief of police, and the first thing she does is blame social media for showing a story which isn't always right. Well, no. What I see in social media is the crap being beat out of a couple by a large group of minority people. All right,
Yeah.
that's what I see.
No reason whatsoever to beat him up other than that. You know,
It's like Bill. It's almost like she's justifying that. Well, I mean, there might have been a reason for it. No, there's no reason for it, ma'am. You're the chief of police. You should know it's against. You've heard of assault and battery.
You know what? Yeah. And you know what? Maybe it's me, and maybe I shouldn't have said, maybe they were walking through the wrong neighborhood. There's
Right.
no wrong neighborhood. Simple fact is that could be a predominantly white, Puerto Rican, black neighborhood, Jewish neighborhood. Doesn't matter where it is. What happened to them is wrong.
Yeah,
And it's simple as that. And it doesn't matter their skin color or whatever. These two clowns that they got here that they show that, did it, they got some background on them. But
yeah.
I will say this on social media,
By the way, Bill, one of them is a woman, Decra Vernon, 24, and from the video that I saw, she was really getting into kicking the guy when he was down. I mean,
some people love to kick because you're down.
Yeah.
You kick. They kick in bad, but they kick in the head. They kick in the
Yep.
groin. They kick everywhere they can, and they have steel toed on. They got pointy shoes on. But my point is, I will say this about social media: people got their phone. Oh, I got to get this. They'll stand back and they'll get this. Yeah, I'm recording it. You recording it for the police? No, I'm going to post this on TikTok. This will go viral. I'll make money from it.
Yeah.
And that's true. You get something, you are rewarded. And there's something I've wanted to say for a while. Facebook does it too. You sit there and you go, why am I getting all these stupid, silly memes, from people? And they're derogative memes. Republicans don't post, for the most part, derogative Democratic memes. And if we did, they would get banned, but not the other way around. And what happens is negativity goes viral.
Yeah.
And then Facebook will reward you if you get a lot of people looking at that video. They put it in like a hyper rotation to where it goes to everybody. They're not even your friends because that's clickbait for Facebook for money. So your pain is their gain, and that is BS.
Yeah, that's true. But I do think that the Cincinnati police chief should rethink her position because right now she's talking out of her gluteus maximus. And we'll just leave it at that.
She does it well.
Yes, she does. President Trump has given Russia a new ultimatum as far as sitting down and talking peace. Here's what President Trump said.
Earlier you said that you were going to change the deadline from 50 days. So what is your new deadline? What
I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today. No reason in waiting. There's no reason in waiting. It's 50 days. I want to be generous, but we just don't see any progress being made.
Yeah, that was the day before yesterday, and then yesterday he said 10 days on the airplane. So 10 days from yesterday.
Now. Yes, hurry up. And now I understand that Zelensky is on the wire, too, because the UK and the United States apparently working to get Zelensky out of there. Now, I guess a former general that's
Zelensky, I think his name is. Yeah.
He's a UK ambassador, but he's saying World War III has already begun. What he's meaning by that, I don't know, because I don't like the mention of World War III.
Well, Medvedev, who was the vice president, he was for a while he was the president when I guess they have consecutive term limits over in Russia, and Putin was up against one, so Putin literally inserted Medvedev as the president, and Putin sort of sat by the sidelines, but he didn't sit by the sidelines. He pulled like a Barack Obama. And I guess he was working from home. But then when he could get back into the running again, he got back in and he's president again. But Medvedev is like, he's the guard dog. He's, I used to think he was the rational guy when he was the president. But now he's the kind of guy that comes out and says, and he did say this, I think yesterday, about ultimatums, be careful for what you do. You're not talking to a smaller nation. You're not talking to Iran, with these deadlines and threats. What he was saying was when Trump says you got 10 days or we're going to do this, it doesn't have the same effect on Russia as it has on some of the smaller countries. But that's not necessarily true from what I understand. From what I understand, Trump doesn't have to fire a missile to cripple Russia. With this trade deal he just put together the day before yesterday, this 15% tariff deal with the EU, part of the deal is all of the fuel that the EU was getting from Russia is going to be replaced with American oil and gas. That's a big deal. That cuts all of that the customer base out of the Russian fuel supplies. They're in trouble. They'll feel that big time in Russia. So, and I was thinking, how do you do that? I mean, we don't have a pipeline. Is it a just a chain link of fuel ships that go back and forth to Europe?
Maybe, I don't know. And and I got to wonder if no, we don't have a pipeline, and that would be kind of a dangerous pipeline.
Yeah.
Look at what happened to Russia's.
Right.
But, somebody will do that. Tunnel systems. I know we were doing one. I don't know if it's done or whatever. Remember they were doing the connection between us and the UK?
If they were doing that, Bill, they stopped talking about it. Nothing. Now, this is just me talking out of my hat. But there are a lot of things supposedly in our own country, tunnels and things like that we are totally unaware of as a population.
You mean the dumb? The
deep underground military system.
bases.
Yeah, the DUMBs.
And there's tunnels in between. While we were talking, you've got a text of a truck driver driving through the tunnel.
Well, they have,
and I know it's legit because
supposedly they have a rail system, a government rail system that goes from the East Coast to the West Coast.
Well, we do, and we also have these tunnels all over the damn place, all over the globe.
And by the way, if you're shaking your head, that's nonsense. I've seen video of and interviews with truck drivers who have had to drive into these tunnels to drop off supplies. So
they have government contracts, and they, because I talked about it before, but they have, these deep underground military bases. Some of them, and they go down pretty darn far. Like maybe that's why we had the bunker buster technology, because we knew we had these deep things, and they're deep. There's one under Dallas. I know that. I
got to tell you something. It's one of those shows where we can do this. Sometimes we have to stick to the facts, but every so often we like to, just what if? There's a program on TV called The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. It's been on for years. And I watch it because it's interesting, although every week they kind of
wonder
do
if one of those tunnels or bases are under there.
Well, here's the thing, Bill. They've been digging for the past few weeks into a hillside where they're getting a lot of electric readings from. I mean, big-time electric readings. I mean, like off-the-chart electric readings. And they have run into like a metallic substance that they say is found normally on like spaceships when they're re-entering. It's used to protect the spaceship from burning up.
Yeah.
It's a very, very hard substance, and they don't know what the heck it's doing under the ranch. Now, there was a guy who owned that ranch before the guy who owns it now, Fugel, and the guy who owned it before was doing some serious investigation into what was happening at Skinwalker Ranch, too, because they've had a lot of strange things going on there for years, for decades. And he all of a sudden, he stopped. And by the way, this guy has tons of government contracts. I can't think of his name. The guy before Brandon Fugel, who owned Skinwalker Ranch. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the guy stopped. And when he stopped and sold the ranch, he didn't sell any of their findings with the ranch, meaning with all the stuff that they found out about what was going on. They sold the property, and that was it. You got nothing else. That's it. You got the land, the house. Have a nice day. And so now you got to wonder, Bill, are they accidentally tapping into an underground tunnel maybe system that was built by us that goes under the ranch?
You should look at the video that I sent you, because it goes, I'll just say it this way. It goes more or less from east to west, but it actually goes from the East Coast from a particular place to Arizona.
Yeah.
So, so now you got to think, okay, you could collapse part of a tunnel and that's that. But, these tunnels do have, like floodgates that could, lock off a section if something happened. They've also got cities, communities down there. And a lot of times these truckers that have to go in, very few of them get to, but they get to drive the whole thing because they go from one end to the other and they got to take something there.
And I would think, by the way, if you want to spray the inside of these tunnels, you would want to spray them with some, or maybe you don't spray it, maybe you coat it with some kind of substance that hardens to a metallic hardness that is, that is unbreakable, that can withstand the pressure that you would normally have by having a tunnel at that depth.
You want something that would be, that would be
unbreakable.
Unbreakable, but it would not suffer the effects of being underground,
right?
Water or maybe natural disaster. It's something that could go through it, or at least seal off the damaged areas.
On this TV program, Bill, you have to ask yourself, why is it every so often during an episode, a black helicopter will be seen flying around the ranch? Are they getting too close to something?
Yeah, I still think some of that series is
fiction.
Is bogus. Yeah, because the reason I say that is because as I'm watching it and I'm going like, okay, now I don't have a bunch of money that I can just throw away and go buy rockets to shoot, but those rockets that they're shooting, you or I can get. There are clubs, there are people that do them commercially, but they're nothing special. When they did the little dance of the drones of the lights and the ones come down, they can only go up so long. I'm going, I think they could be doing some research, but to fund this show, to do this thing, they're doing a lot of little, smoke and mirror things.
That's what they do. Well, I mean, look at the Curse of Oak Island. They've been looking for that goal for 15 years on television, and I swear to God, the producers never want to find it because the goal that they're getting is the goal from the advertising of that show.
Or the other possibility could be is that show is a distraction because people know about it. So now, let's make it look like there's somebody out there doing something for us, And, they're giving you just enough to keep you hanging on, keeps the show going on, but not enough to know what the hell really is going on.
Yeah. Well, I only mention it, Bill, because what they find when they chip a piece of this, whatever it is underground, it's a metallic substance that is usually man-made, and it's incredibly hard, and they can't figure out why it's underground. But it would make sense that it was underground if it was a coating for a tunnel.
Yeah, well, I do know that there are two hot spots. Arizona, there's something there, and the only thing I can think, there used to be they've sold the silos, but what's underground there that we have that we keep, and in Nevada, there's stuff that's going on out there that we have underground,
and Utah, and. I think Utah is where Skinwalker Ranch is. So
right, so this highway I think goes right through or right by there, and meanders down a little bit. And there are when I say cities, I'm talking about cities, and we're not talking about small areas, but there are things that have been naturally carved out that have been down there that they've finished out and fortified, and there are things that they've made, but they've been doing it for years. I mean, the technology came around a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
I think back in the 50s or before that, actually.
It makes you go, doesn't it? I mean, it really does.
They have planes down there. You know that, right?
They have a lot of things underground. They have bomb shelters. I mean, by the way, where do you think Congress is going to go if there's a nuclear war?
There's construction going on again at the White House, and there's stuff that's been going on fortifying underground. How quick and how fast can they get down there? They are the elites. They are the ones that run this country.
Yeah.
And, if they're that worried about something, You know, why we used to have bomb shelters. We don't anymore. I looked in the map. They say we have some, but I went to the one guy that does the civil defense here, and I'm going, well, it says we have bomb shelters. Oh, yeah, but they haven't been. Forget about it. And nobody knows. So if there was something, they're not ready for you.
I'm looking at the video that you just sent me, and it is amazing. If this video is real and it looks real, it looks big-time real. There are tunnels, folks. There's a highway system under our country, and they just don't tell you about it because they don't want you to know.
I can get you one truck driver possibly to talk, and she might say something. She's been in it. She's driven it. I know that for a fact.
Wow. Can you imagine, folks? We've been walking over and driving over this whole system that we're totally unaware of. They can't get Amtrak to run on time, and the rail system needs an upgrade big time, but they can dig tunnels from coast to coast and make a very sophisticated highway system. It's not for us.
No,
it's for the military.
And it's maintained. Maintained. When was the last time all the money we pay in taxes and our road system sucks?
Oh, how about our bridges? Bridges are collapsing. In the meantime, they're building an infrastructure underground.
Here's my question for you, and it's a dumb question. I already know it going into it. Because we do have buildings. They're not in great shape, but they've had to be restored. They go way back to the time maybe of Jesus. I don't know, but we have old cities.
Right.
But we have been. We have a lot of so-called modern cities. We've torn buildings down to put up new ones. But we've really got an old system. Really, when you think about it, a lot of the big major skyscrapers, except for what went up in place of the World Trade Center, or the towers, I should say, what went up in place of those, we have very old infrastructure. And as a matter of fact, we got a lot of big cities all over the world that are not that modern anymore. And what do you do to something that needs to be rebuilt?
You destroy it.
So, and I sit there and it makes me go, well, how would you do that? We've got a lot of cities that need to be rebuilt and replaced. California just burned down the city.
By the way, I'm glad you mentioned California.
Yeah.
Have you heard that they had $100 million fundraiser called Fire Aid?
Yeah, well, that's going to build homes for the homeless.
Listen, folks, during the Fire Aid concerts and stuff like that, celebrities went out on the stage. Samuel L. Jackson was one of them, and were saying things like, and every penny you give to this Fire Aid will go directly to people who've suffered the loss. And so a reporter recently went out and interviewed many people who've suffered the loss. They haven't seen a dime. Nothing.
No.
And then they went to the people at Fire Aid, by the way, and Fire Aid said, well, we gave it to we're not designed to give it directly to the people who need it. So we gave it to charities that we work with who can distribute it. Well, then they got a list of those charities, and she said that nobody has gotten any money from these charities, and they've gotten a lot of money.
But Gavin Newsom all of a sudden had $100 million that he could sit there and say, well, we're going to rebuild, and 40% of the homeless get to get into these. Yeah. And I'm going like, wait a minute. Talk about the biggest heist in history.
So what they're doing is they're taking prime property. I've never personally been there, but I know people who have, and they say it's magnificent, beautiful property. They're taking prime property, and it was money that was tax money that was being generated by fairly well-to-do people. I mean, Mel Gibson had a property; he still does. I think his house escaped, but like the next door neighbors didn't. It was that close.
Yeah.
But they're going to replace those houses with like Section 8 housing for, like homeless people. I mean, this is what I hate to say it, folks. And if you disagree, I'm sorry, but it's true. The Democrats do this a lot. They take something that's nice and they they quote upgrade it to something that's terrible.
You can take 50,000, 100,000 people and displace them. Forget about you guys. You're out of here. We're going to build something that will hold 300,000 people. It may not be citizens yet, but they're going to be.
Oh yeah.
In L.A., that's certified redistricting to where that they will get more congressional seats.
Now the good news. I'm going to play a cut. Jeanine Pirro. She was talking about Washington D.C.
Yes,
but I would submit that you could look at what she's saying here about Washington and apply it to Boston, Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Listen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. Attorney in D.C., and we are prioritizing the president's executive order to make D.C. safe and beautiful. And as part of that initiative, what my office has done in recent weeks is we are now trying to identify those illegals who are currently burrowed in our criminal justice system, who've identified themselves either as citizens or individuals with actual legal status who do not have status or are illegal. Previously, there was no questioning them, and there was certainly no verification of that. Now, I've got my chief criminal investigator, Matt Fox Moles, who has an enforcement removal officer embedded with his investigators, working with ICE to identify those individuals already in the system that we can then find out from ICE what their status is. Previously, no one even asked. They would just literally go through the system and either be convicted and possibly go to jail or be found not guilty and be released. But the D.C. City Council has worked very hard to make sure that these individuals avoid any contact with ICE, almost to the point where the law requires, upon a request by a defense attorney, that an illegal be removed to the Department of Corrections when there may be no actual case, to kind of throw the feds off, as opposed to simply releasing them from the courthouse right then and there. We're on top of this. We're making sure now that not just in the misdemeanor cases, but in the federal docket, the Superior Court docket, we are identifying the illegals that are in the system to make sure that D.C. is safe, that we know who is here and who is entitled to be here. So as we cut through the red tape and as we break down some of those federal bureaucratic walls and fight the sanctuary city status, we are making D.C. safe again.
That's Jeanine Pirro, formerly of Fox, and that's her jurisdiction, D.C. But I've heard the U.S. Attorney in L.A. talking the same way. It's a full court press, and I think it's the right thing, because these sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, in my humble opinion, I'm not a lawyer, but in and of themselves, they seem to be illegal, pure and simple. I mean, to the casual onlooker from the sidelines, what they're doing is they're saying, when you step across the boundary into our jurisdiction, our city, all of the laws of the U.S. are trivialized. They have no significance, because the only law that counts here is the law in our city. And that's not how the system works. It just isn't. They've allowed it. The Democrats have allowed it to go that way.
They've allowed a lot of things. They allow these people to get driver's licenses. And then you go, well, there's the real ID. I remember I lost my license, and it renews in October. But I said, yeah, you know what? I'll just go and renew it now. Today, I don't have my license. They could pull everything up from everything else, and they found me. And it's okay. I have a passport. But they're going, do you want the real ID? I'm going, do I need it? And they go, oh, no, real ID or regular ID, you can still drive across, certain states. It just allows people to fly, in certain cities. I said, oh, with a regular ID, you have to check. They go, yeah, but this is like a passport. I said, I have a passport. Well, then you don't need it. Now, I did say, but now I do know that the real ID has been issued to people that were not citizens. I'm going,
oh, man.
Does that mean that you can fly out of the country with that? Oh, no, they don't honor that. You have to have a passport. And I'm going, maybe we should just make sure that everybody that's a citizen gets a valid passport. And I hate to say this, but, I remember when I used to travel, like when I was doing things in the 90s and going to, Frankfurt or Berlin and stuff like that, or anything like that. You get out of the airport and then you'd walk through the thing, passport, please. And they would look and they would stamp where you were and into where you're going. So they knew that
Bill, I have the Real ID, and it was encouraged to get it. And
it doesn't do anything for you.
But I was just going to say, I'm not too thrilled, and I'll tell you why. It works. It has a barcode system on it. And I say barcode. It's even more sophisticated than that, I think. But on that little card, it has a ton of information that I don't know is on the card. Probably my blood type, my religion, and where, I don't know. They can put so much information on the head of a pin now. You don't know what's on that card anymore that you're carrying around. You think it's just a driver's license. I've had one since I was 16. No, they're different now. They really are. And maybe you were good, by the way, in not getting it. Although I think even now, eventually at some point, they're just going to make every license a Real ID, and you won't have a choice. Right now you have a choice, but you won't.
But whatever the information is that they have, which is pretty extensive, is not enough to sit there and guarantee that you're a citizen of this country traveling. You have to have a passport. So there's something to the Real ID. I was told, when I came in, I said, well, should I go ahead and get the Real ID? And they said, well, the expiration is this week, but if I were you, I wouldn't get it. I said, okay.
One other thing before we wrap this one up. Emil Bove, who was the president's attorney, was confirmed to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals in a 50 to 49 vote. Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins, two women who you definitely know you can count on to screw up a one-car parade. They were the no votes on the Republican side, and they said I think it was Collins who was on MSNBC, and she said that this guy Emil Bove, he couldn't. She said on MSNBC on Tuesday that Emil Bove, quote, would not serve as an impartial jurist, end quote. Now, this is a trusted jurist who's been representing President Trump in some of his cases and done a magnificent job. He knows the law, right? Collins, I'm sure, never had a problem with any of the leftist morons that she's approved, but she has to stand up. She's from Maine, by the way, which is just what's happening with our friends in Maine. Come on.
They have cops that were illegal.
I know. I was just going to say it. All of a sudden, you got Orchard Beach cops that are illegals. And I'll never understand how that guy even got into the point where he raised his hand, because what about doing a little fact-checking? Look at his resume.
If somebody comes up in a cop car, they got the badge, you gotta adhere to them. You can't question their citizenship now, can you?
You know why he was arrested?
Well, he was buying a gun.
He was this guy now, not the gun that is issued when he goes out on the street. That's given by the police department. He wanted to buy a gun, I guess a personal gun, and he couldn't understand why he couldn't get it because.
Well, in his shoes, I kind of agree with him because, hey, I'm a cop here. I should be able to buy a gun here. But you're not a legal cop here because whoever was your police chief and beyond that didn't do any background checking or,
you know what I think? I was thinking about this yesterday because, I have a lot of free time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I was thinking, it's not a matter of they missed this guy's information. It's a matter of they ignored it.
Exactly.
The chief ignored. Someone made a decision. We need a minority, and we need somebody from the Virgin Islands or wherever the guy was from. His name was Evans. I'm not sure where he was from, but we do need someone who will fill a category. So we'll just take that guy.
Here's a question:
What?
How many other officers there and elsewhere in the state are not citizens? Were they trying to, flood the bus to where then you can say, well, wait a minute, this has been a, status quo for a long time. You can't just upend it now.
Hey, it could be a whole flood of them. It really could. And by the way, it may not be just in Maine.
That's right.
This
it could
may
be
be
anywhere. They just got caught.
Tip of the iceberg. It may be all over the country.
I think it is. I think you can go to, Democrat or Democrat-leaning cities because they have been pushing that agenda. And I have my suspicion why, but they're doing it. It is not for the good of you and me and the United States.
How can Massachusetts issue IDs to every illegal? I mean, every illegal in the state gets an ID.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a sanctuary state.
See, that by itself is, you're aiding and abetting a crime. You
know what? You got to prove that they didn't have the authority, and that goes all the way up to the governor. And, now this goes to many governors before Healy, but I would say any governor that supported that and did that, and the current governor, sorry, but you committed a crime.
Yeah.
You need to be held accountable. And you go in and physically arrest them and bring them in.
Well, Bill,
but that ain't going to happen.
I'm glad we didn't have anything to talk about today.
Me too.
Yeah.
Hey, there's one thing here. Jasmine Crockett in the news again. She feels, I guess, left out. She's blasting AOC and Bernie Sanders, fighting oligarchy as she says it's self-serving. She said, now this is where she gets it wrong.
It's about social media?
She goes, no, it's self-serving for them. She goes, it's about not them, but it's about the team. Well, excuse me, but no, it is about the people.
Well, here's the thing. She also yesterday made a comment like, I don't know why I'm not on that committee. I have more likes, social media likes.
She's an idiot.
Well,
and that's about her.
It's never been about social media likes, Jasmine, ever. It's never been. It's been about your performance as a congressman.
And isn't that self-serving? I have more likes.
Well, not only that, by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene has like 3 times the number of followers on her website as does Jasmine Crockett. But in her mind, she should be getting positions in Congress based upon her popularity, which is mind-boggling. Anyway, I'm done, my friend. I have nothing more to add. I hope you have a great Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. Halfway through the week.
Yeah, you get confused like I do now.
I'm ready for the weekend, man. I'm already ready for the weekend.
You're going to party for the week. It's going to be cooler this weekend. Maybe some bad weather, too.
What do they call us? Over the hump day? I like it. Over the hump day. Yeah, it's downhill to the weekend.
Yeah, we're on the downhill slide. And with that, I'll just say this. Hasta la vista, baby. We're out of here.
Wake up on the right side with Right Side Coffee.
Available at rightsideshop.com.
This is CRN America.